Hey everybody, welcome back to another Nature's Always Right video. This is part 2 of my Grow Food Now series, your basic gardening skills to get you going. My name is Stephen Cornett, and I'm here to teach you how to grow food naturally for your family or grow food for profit as a market gardener. So in part 2 today, we're gonna take the transplants that we got from Home Depot yesterday. We amended the beds in part 1, and now we're gonna be planting those transplants and watering them in with some real special nutrient water that I'm gonna show you guys how I'm making. We're also gonna be planting potatoes as well and going over just a ton of different tips related to planting in general. So I hope this really helps you upgrade your knowledge on how to plant. Be sure to share this video to help other people learn how to grow food if they're beginners or they just want to learn some new techniques. Also remember, I'm going live tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to answer any questions that you guys might have, and I just want to help as many of you as possible, so I hope to see you there. Be sure to share the live stream as well, and I'll see you guys tonight. So now we've prepared both of our beds with all the amendments and the compost, so now let's get our transplants ready, and we need to put them in positions that are going to be good for these plants. Now summer fruiting plants like squash, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, cucumbers, anything that produces a fruit, it needs a lot of sunlight in order to produce things really well. So when looking at your yard, it's really important to know where's south, where's west, where's east, where's north. Figure out those positions. In the winter, you're gonna have the sun traveling in the southern sky, but in the summertime, it's gonna really come directly overhead. So the camera right now is facing west, and the two corners right here of these boxes get the most sunlight throughout the year and especially the summer. So that's where we wanna have our squash, our tomatoes, our peppers, things like the basil. They don't need as much sunlight, and you can even plant these underneath your tomatoes or with your tomatoes, and that's called interplanting. And that's a really fantastic way of getting more crops in a smaller area. And I have an in-depth video all about that, and I'm gonna put links in the description to some other videos that I've made that will really help you to go more in depth on some of these concepts that I'm just briefly touching on in this beginner video. So the other thing to think about with your light is what's around your garden. So you can see that there's that tree there that's casting a little bit of shade here. So in this back corner, because it gets less light, that's gonna be a great place for greens, for herbs, even like radishes or some of the smaller root vegetables will do really well right there. So look all around your garden. We've got these eucalyptus trees on the west side. So in the late afternoon, those block sun as well. So you really just want to look all around the garden, see what's going to cast shade. You could even come out every couple hours into your garden and see where the shade is before you even plan out your garden. So the next thing, we kind of touched on it at Home Depot, but we need to prepare these transplants. So these squash, because they're so far spaced apart, we're gonna take a knife and just cut through here to try to separate the roots out. It is gonna damage the plants a little bit. The most guaranteed way to have the healthiest plant would be to come in here with some pruners and just clip out the weaker or smaller looking one and plant the entire root ball into the ground. But in order to save money, if they're far enough apart like this, that's about 2.5 inches apart, you can actually save these. So that's what we're gonna do. Now, on your tomatoes need to be prepped by removing the couple bottom leaves, because we're gonna actually bury this up until about here, right below this first leaf here. And when you do that on a tomato, it'll actually produce roots higher up on the stalk. The other things on a tomato you wanna do are remove any suckers, which are places in the crotch of the plant between the main stem and the side shoots, and those just draw energy away, and we want to really force this plant to get tall and go onto the trellis that we're going to make. And I've got a video all about pruning tomatoes as well. Any dead or dying leaves on a plant, it's better just to remove them. Okay, so here's the configuration that we came up with. We want to make sure that there's enough space in between so things, once they're bigger, will be able to get lots of room and light. And you'll notice that it's kind of a diamond pattern here. Planting in a diamond pattern is the best way to get the most light and air to all of your plants. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and plant our tomato and pepper right now. Peppers are planted at the soil surface level, so where you see the top of the soil in that pot, you're gonna match that up with the top of the surface here. So you just wanna dig a hole and put it in. The tomato, I'm gonna plant it to that first stem there. So I'm gonna plant a little bit of that stem in there because, like I said, the tomato's able to get more roots on the stem by doing that, and it'll allow the plant to get more nutrients and water easily. So a great way is to just dig your hole and then test it by putting it in, and then you can just put your hand at the top of the surface and then see where it's gonna hit. So that looks pretty good to me. You just squeeze around the outside of the pot. I like to put my forefinger and middle finger to support the plant, let it come out. If there's a lot of roots around here, which this does not have that, but sometimes they get root bound, and that means that there's just roots are spiraling around the soil. So it helps to just kind of lightly massage the roots and get them loosened up so that they can go out into the ground easily. I'll just rest that in there, and I like to kind of hold on to the plant as you're putting the soil in so that you're not pushing it around or accidentally snapping the stem. Push the soil around, and then you can slightly compress it down to snug it in there. And when you water, that's also going to help to congeal and take out any air pockets around the root zone. And that's it.
There we go.
There we go. It's really helpful so that you remember what varieties you did. You know, your transplants are going to come with this little sticker deal. So just put it in the ground, and then you know what type of tomato you have. This right here is a beefsteak, and that right there is a Bonnie Bell, sweet bell pepper. This is a jalapeno, and that's a zucchini green squash over there. If the plants are a little smaller and weaker, you can pile up more dirt onto the stem to help support it, so if there's a lot of wind or rain, it doesn't get knocked over. We want to divide our squash, so we're gonna get 2 plants out of 1. So I'm just gonna cut it right down the middle. And whenever you're doing something like this, where you take the root ball out of the pot, you wanna get it planted immediately. Don't let it sit out in the sunlight. So I pull both of them out.
Ooh, they came apart nice.
Yeah. There you go. So now you got roots on this side, roots on that side, and these will survive no problem. And now we got a 2-for-1 deal from Home Depot. So my mom's gonna plant that one. I'm gonna throw this one in the other plot. So one other thing that we could plant here using an interplanting technique would be to plant lettuce or cilantro, green onion, maybe some radish seeds in between the tomatoes, the squash, and the pepper that's gonna grow in about 30 days. You could harvest that before the squash or the tomato get big enough to shade out those plants. So you can also think about playing with the space in between plants and the days to maturity that each plant will take to grow. We're just gonna throw these in real quick, and just a little note on spacing. Now, tomatoes in a garden system, you want to space them, you know, about 2.5 feet is pretty good. If you're doing a production farm-based system, you can stack them as close as 12 inches apart. If you want to see a video on that, I can put that in the description. But this is going to be a lot easier, especially for first-time gardeners. Keep a bit more space. You want to make sure they have enough light so that you're successful. They're easier to trellis and all of that. Now, this pot that it came with has one of these compostable outer materials. It's like a cardboard material. You can plant with it in there. I'm gonna pull it off, whatever comes off really easily, because I want to let the roots kind of dive out. You can just plant these, but you know, if there's a little bit left on there, I'll probably just leave it. We've got basil in the middle here as our companion plant. And basil's really nice, obviously, because it tastes good with the tomatoes, and it'll even help to resist some of the pests. So the last crop that we'll put in these beds are potatoes because they're super high calorie and we already have some ready to plant. Basically what you're seeing here, these are the eyes that come out of the tuber and they're super easy to plant. You just take your knife and cut the potato in half and you can actually split these eyes. So if I do it like this, now I took that one potato and now I've got two potential potato plants. You can think about these as a seed. To get your own potatoes to do this, you'll just store them in a dark place and wait, and eventually they will do this. So a real cheap way is just to go to the store, buy them organic, let them sit around. You can do the same with sweet potatoes, and once the eyes start coming out, this is even a little later than you need to wait. They're ready to go. We need to plant these out about every 12 inches and we can fit 2 rows in this bed. You need to space them out every 2 to 3 feet in the row. Now for planting, you could dig a big trench here, or you could just take your shovel, dig down and plant, which is what I'm going to do since I don't have a lot of them. And when you plant them, you want the eyes to be facing up. As the plant starts to grow up and gets really tall, you're going to start piling up more dirt around it and it'll be able to send off more nodes that are going to create more potatoes for you. So check out some other videos to learn how to grow potatoes, but they'll take about 70 to 120 days depending on the variety before you harvest them. So the last couple things that I'll mention, just check it out. My mom put these tomato cages here. So this is going to be how we will trellis these up. If you want to check out a more advanced trellis or some other ways to trellis, I have got videos on those that I'll put in the description. One last thing to mention is rodents and rabbits, things like that. So we're going to be putting up a fencing here basically to keep them out so they don't come in and eat our baby seedlings. So that'll depend on your area though. So you can get fencing like this from any type of hardware store, Lowe's, Home Depot, and stakes that you can put into your garden beds. Also, bird netting is another cheap way that works really well to cover. You can make little hoops from 9-gauge wire or 1/2-inch EMT conduit. There's a lot of different ways that you could build protective structures for your garden. So the final step is just to water these in. They need water immediately after being planted. Get the ground saturated so that they have plenty of water. The plants are going to be a bit weaker in that first week while they get acclimated to the new home that they're in. We are going to actually add some nutrients to our water. Now this isn't necessary, but since I have the extra nutrients, I want to show you guys some more techniques. So for this, we're going to add in some of my fish emulsion and seaweed. That provides NPK, nitrogen, phosphate and potassium, and all the minerals that they're going to need. I also have some of my Korean natural farming inputs, such as water-soluble calcium, calcium phosphate, and we're also going to water in some more azomite. I'll mix that into the water as well, and then make a really beautiful nutrient blend there and water in with that so that the plants will have everything that they could possibly need right from the start. But if you're growing in great compost, don't worry about it. That will also provide enough nutrition. This is just something extra that you can do, and I want to inform you about. All right, so now we're going to make our nutrient water. I'm not going to go into depth on all this to you guys, but I've got other videos about it, and I will make more videos about this sort of stuff in the future. OHN, or Oriental Herbal Medicine, it's a bunch of extracted herbs, garlic, licorice, a bunch of other ones. This is calcium phosphate and calcium. This helps with the structure of the plant, helping it to build good root systems, good fruit. This is a FPJ, a fermented plant juice. This has different plant enzymes and nutrients, bacteria. This is IMO2. This is wild harvested biology. This is fish emulsion and seaweed. We'll do some more azomite as well. Now you could get some products online, and I'll put some links in the description. That's easy, ready to go. These other things, these are things that I made and things that I'm going to be talking a lot more about on my channel, so be sure to subscribe so you can learn how to make all your own nutrients at home for very, very low cost. So now we're going to dilute with rainwater here, and my parents have a super cool rainwater setup. Actually, they have all these 250-gallon water tanks. So yeah, let's go ahead and add the water. So we're gonna water in with this first. And soil, if it's dry, it's deceptive how much water can actually be held in the soil. So we may add this and check the soil and see that it's still dry underneath, which means we'll come back in with a hose and water this in further. So this soil was already pretty wet from our rain, so as I stick my finger down in there, I can see it's soaked all the way down. We will come in with a hose though, after we plant our seeds, and just give it a final soaking to make sure it's fully wet all the way around the root zone. But a great way to check if your plant has enough moisture is just to dig back the soil about an inch. Now when you're initially watering, you want to do a deep watering. I'm a big fan of doing deep watering less often, and that's going to more mimic what rainfall is going to be like.